Welcome back to Downloadable Content. My name is SJ, and Alex is not here. Today, I am going to talk a bit more about some news, Nintendo news. Let's get right into it.
Herschel.
The beautiful flock, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I am sick. I've been sick for the last couple of days. But work has just been so busy that I've just still been working. And so it's been a little brutal. And Alex is not here because he's had a crazy week. So we are excusing him, and I am running it solo. And hopefully I don't manage to completely butcher the quality of this podcast. So please be patient with me, and thank you. So before we get into the main topic today, excuse me, we have a question from the Discord channel. Zaruma asks, would you rather live in a world where magic is real, but technology is primitive, or a world where advanced technology exists, but magic is forbidden? So you've got two worlds, both with technology and magic, but one has an emphasis on magic, the other one has an emphasis on advanced technology, and magic is forbidden. Let me think about that for a second. So I would say that our world today has advanced technology, and maybe Zeruma means that technology would be more advanced, but we don't have magic. So what would the implications be of having magic, and would it be better to have it forbidden? Now, my basis for what magic would look like, I'm going to base that on stuff that I've just seen in media. Let's say, I don't know, Skyrim has some pretty cool magic. Maybe like the Marvel universe, but I'm a little less into that, so I can't talk about it as much. So with magic, things that you can do. Oh, Harry Potter. There we go. Harry Potter's got magic. You can teleport. You can put things on fire. You can kill people. You can, I don't know, have dishes clean themselves. That's pretty brilliant. So I'm guessing that in the world where magic is real but technology is primitive, I'm going to assume that there are probably still going to be certain laws surrounding magic, because I'm sure you can't go around crucioing everybody. But with that understanding, now, magic is cool. And I honestly think that I might prefer a world where the magic is advanced and technology is primitive. I think solely out of curiosity, because I love technology. Technology, don't get me wrong. I built my PC. But magic, from what I understand, is more skill-based, right? Like you can't just teach someone, or you can't just like give somebody your magic abilities, as opposed to as opposed to technology where you can just buy technology, or, you know, you don't have to learn how the technology works in order to deploy it, where magic is the opposite. You've got to learn it, you've got to study it. So I think it would be really satisfying to be able to invent your own spells, or, have some like magic that's passed down through generations only in your family or something. And then I think for the most part, when we look at worlds like Harry Potter, magic would serve the purposes that technology serves in our world today. And it would be cool to see what that looks like. So that's my pick. I would choose advanced technology, where magic is real and technology is primitive, over a world where both technology and magic exist, but technology is advanced and magic is forbidden. Yeah, I also think that forbidding magic altogether, I mean, how in the world are you going to enforce that? That's because it's like knowledge based, right? It's not like, certain weapons that you can make sure people aren't producing. It's just like, well, if you find a book with the magic spells in it, you have to make sure that people aren't using that. But how are you gonna detect that? Maybe magic is, I guess, if technology advanced enough, maybe you can like detect magic, and then law enforcement would react to that accordingly. Anyway, I think I'm thinking too much about this, so I'm gonna move on. But let me know your thoughts. Which one of those would you prefer? That was a really good question. I like that one. Let's see. That is it from Discord. So let me get right into our main topic. We're talking about a couple of things today. One, there is a leak on the Nintendo Switch 2. Supposed leak, so take it with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, these are glorified rumors. Give me just 1 second. My headphones are being a little weird. One moment. 1 second. Let's see if that's better. Okay, there we go. Sorry. I need to be able to hear myself talking, or it's kind of disorienting. So it makes it easier for me to mispronounce things when I hear my voice delayed and I'm not hearing myself live. So two pieces of news, right? One is the Switch leak that I just mentioned. Two, we now have Nintendo emulators on iOS. That's a hot one. These are both hot ones, but I want to leave the emulators for last because that one is a bit controversial. The Switch 2 leak. So I've got an article pulled up here. I kind of want to go over the summary and just give my thoughts on it because I have some. This article is by Game Rant, so credit goes to them. Supposedly, this is a leak from, like, suppliers. It comes from a Switch accessory maker. So there's supposed to be some credibility behind the leaker, but who really knows, right? This is coming from China. So there are several key pieces of information. Number one, the Bluetooth chip in the Switch 2 still supports existing Joy-Con and Pro controllers and still features HD vibration or HD rumble. So supposedly you're still going to be able to use your old Joy-Cons with the new system through Bluetooth. Number two, the Switch 2 has backwards compatibility with Switch 1 cartridges, but Switch 2 cartridges will be different and won't fit on a Switch 1. Now, I called this. I am pretty sure I mentioned this in a podcast episode a while ago. This is how I think it should be. And I hope that this is true. This is basically mirroring what they did with the 3DS, like going from the DS to the 3DS, right? So regular DS cartridges can still go into a 3DS, but the 3DS had a little notch on the side so that you couldn't put it into a regular DS. I think that just makes logical sense. Number 3, the new Joy-Cons are larger, good, and are magnetically attached to the console with an electromagnet. The SL and SR buttons are metallic now, and there's a new button behind each Joy-Con. The location, okay, let's see. Where's that button supposed to be? Oh, the information is gone. I can't see it. When they say a new button behind each Joy-Con, I'm guessing these are like little behind the controller paddles that might be on third-party controllers like this. I got a couple buttons right here, so it might be like that. Okay, and then a new button below the home button on the right Joy-Con. Interesting. So on the right Joy-Con, you've got the home button on the bottom, and then there's another button next to it. Okay. I'm assuming that means that the plus and minus buttons are here to stay, but I guess we'll see. 4. The dock still has a USB port and will also support 4K image output. I am doubtful that video games will be rendered in 4K. I think the best that they could do is some kind of NVIDIA image upscaling, if they are even able to do that on a form factor like a Nintendo Switch. But I don't think that matters. If it just supports 4K image output, I think this will be for streaming. Maybe you can view YouTube, Netflix, Disney Plus, whatever in 4K. I think that would make sense, but I don't think video games are going to be in 4K. Number 5, the new kickstand also has a damping bracket on the back for improved angle adjustment. Damping bracket on the back. Interesting. So I'm guessing that that's something similar to what we have on the OLED Switch. Probably. I don't know how you make that better, but I think this is just saying, hey, it's going to be better than the original Switch's kickstand. Number 6, the screen is bigger, up to 8 inches, and the resolution is upscaled to 1080p. That only makes sense. I figured that the handheld screen resolution would be 1080p. It really doesn't need to be any more than that. You really can't tell much of a difference with a screen size like that on a handheld screen. 1080p is a sweet spot between battery life and image fidelity. So now okay. Let me talk about the controller situation, because this is saying that you can still use the old Joy-Cons like from the Switch 1, but that the new Switch is going to attach magnetically. So meaning you probably are not going to be able to attach your old Joy-Cons to this new one. And if the screen is going to be larger and the new Joy-Cons are going to be larger, I think it's going to be a new proprietary thing. So when I first heard that the Joy-Cons are going to be attached to the new ones magnetically, I wasn't sure how I feel about that, because magnets, as strong as they are, as soon as you put some leverage to it, you can take it off pretty easily. Now, the exception are electromagnets, which this specifies is going to be with an electromagnet. Electromagnets, for simplicity's sake, basically it uses electrical currents to power a magnet. So it can be a lot stronger than what a non-powered magnet would be. It's the kind of technology used to hover bullet trains in Japan, for example. So, but that makes me question, okay, does that mean that the Joy-Cons can come off really easily if I'm not playing on the Switch too, or, you know, or are they consistently sapping power? I don't know. I don't know how they do this and make it so that the Joy-Cons are securely attached at all times, without either using some crazy big magnets that wouldn't wouldn't it would need to not interfere with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connectivity or any electrical components of the Switch, or these electromagnets that would supposedly drain battery life. But I don't know how much power it takes either. So, yeah, I don't know. And it doesn't mention a rail, right? So, what would make a lot of sense to me is if it was a magnet system, but you also have a rail. So if they slide in like the original Switch, but then it's further secured by magnets or something, or electromagnets or whatever. But this doesn't mention rails at all. So this makes me think that you're just going to snap it onto the sides and there's no rails to slide onto. That will be interesting to see how that's implemented, but I'm skeptical right now, but I have faith in Nintendo. I think they know what they're doing. Like I would be blown away if the new Joy-Cons are worse than what we have right now. I just don't think that's going to happen. I do, however, really hope that they have solved the drift issue. Just give us better joysticks, reliable joysticks. There are certain type of joysticks called Hall effect joysticks. Those actually use magnets to sense the position of the joysticks, and those last a lot longer and are a lot better. So I hope they use that kind of technology for the new Joy-Cons. I also hope that the sticks are a little bit longer, so there's more travel. That allows you to have more precise movement inputs on the sticks. So yeah, there it is. What do you think about that? I think this all makes sense. Again, I don't think video games are going to be 4K on the Switch. It's going to be upscaled 4K, like AI upscaling 4K at best. At worst, it might still be 1080p on the TV. But if we can get 1080p, 60 FPS on the TV for a portable device, assuming the price is right, I would be happy with that. I don't think it's going to be a 1440p situation, because I don't think a lot of monitors support 1440p, but I don't think a lot of TVs do. So I think it's going to be either 1080p or 4K, not a whole lot in the middle. But it would make sense if you could stream 4K media. That'd be cool. And if we are going to have 4K streaming, I hope that we get like proper app support. So we had YouTube and Hulu and Crunchyroll on the Switch. I don't think we ever had Netflix or Disney Plus or Amazon, all the others. If we can get them all, that'd be cool. I personally probably not going to use it a lot, but I know that there are people out there that would. So that would be a cool option. But what do you think about that? I like that the Joy-Cons are going to be larger as well. So theoretically, that should be more ergonomic. I'm okay if they keep the kind of slimmer profile. I think it's a good look. They don't have to make it bulky, but just having it larger in general, I think will help with ergonomics. So, on to the next topic. Emulators are now on iOS. So quick rundown on what emulation is, if you don't know. Emulators basically emulate the functions of a original gaming console. So a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance or Nintendo 64 emulator would basically allow you to play those respective games on newer hardware, where the software emulates the hardware of the original. And let's see, I'm just going to look up. Oh, sorry, guys, we're getting a little bit of interference there. Okay. Yeah, here it is. If you're on video, I'll show it to you right now. There it is. It is the Delta game emulator. Sorry, I can't see it very well. But so if you're on an iPhone or is it on iPad as well? Maybe. Just look up Delta game emulator and it'll be the first result. It's got really good ratings. So I don't know a lot of background on this, but Apple, for a really long time, they did not allow gaming emulators on the App Store. I think it has something to do with rulings in the EU or something. Some like new laws that got passed, I think, that are like dictating that Apple's App Store needs to open it up more and have less of a monopoly control. I don't know all the details. I won't pretend. But what matters most is that we have this now. And the legality of emulation has been money for a really, really long time. The general consensus, and even this is not concrete, is that emulation in and of itself is not illegal. But obtaining the files for the video games that you play, if you are not getting that off of a video game that you physically own, if you're just going to some sketchy website and you're downloading video games, you're pirating, essentially, right? So playing those video games like that is illegal. And that I wholeheartedly agree. I've also heard arguments that, well, even if, let's say, for example, I've got, Fire Red on the Game Boy Advance and have the cartridge on hand, if I buy some third-party hardware to rip the video game off of that, put it on my computer, and then play it on an emulator, some would argue that that is still illegal because I'm circumventing copyright measures that are built into the video game to allow me to play it on a different system. Now, the people that argue that it is legal and fine say that, well, you bought the video game, you have ownership of it, so you should have the right to back it up. In other words, eventually, Game Boy Advance hardware will become obsolete. They're very old now. You can still get them, but you know what I'm saying. Eventually, they'll go away or be very, very difficult to obtain. So if I bought that Fire Red cartridge, I should have the right to put those files on some other hardware and play it as I see fit. I think that is the predominant rhetoric right now, or people will be cracking down, right? I think, because now we've got this emulator on iOS. Android has had many emulators for years and years now. But if emulating video games in and of itself was illegal, then you know, I don't think we would have it in the App Store, let alone the Android Store or Google Play Store. My bad. So yeah, I use emulators. Not a whole lot recently. I just haven't had the occasion, but I've emulated games that I own on my PSP, my PS Vita, my 3DS, and you can hack those systems to do things like that. And I've also emulated a Wii U game on my PC, N64, and there are cool things that you can do. So one of the best things about emulation is that it unlocks the potential of the video game because you are not tied to the limitations of the original hardware. So for example, when I last played Ocarina of Time on my PC, I had it upscaled to 1440p. I enabled widescreen, ultra widescreen actually, so it filled up my monitor. There were some mods that I could install that made the textures better, so it can breathe new life into old games, which is really cool for consumers. For these video game companies, maybe not so much, because they don't want you spending your time, digging through your old library, breathing new life into them. They want you to buy their new games. And another argument for emulation is from a preservation standpoint, right? So any, movies, TV shows, that kind of media that comes out, photographs, videos, right? All of that stuff can be saved and backed up, and they are. All of them are. No movie ever comes out that is going to be completely gone and unplayable 100 years from now. But video games, because of this whole legal debate about emulation, are in a bit of a sticky situation, because if emulation is deemed illegal, now I'm talking about just emulation, I'm not talking about piracy, right? So I don't think you should ever download games, from sketchy websites, especially you don't own. You're promoting piracy by doing that. But if you own the hardware, you're backing up the video game onto your computer, and then you're playing it on your computer or some other device. One argument for emulation is that allows you to preserve that video game that otherwise would eventually become lost media. So that makes a lot of sense to me, right? Because these video game companies are not doing a whole lot to preserve video games. They don't really care about that. Now you've got stuff like Nintendo Switch Online and the classic, PlayStation 1 system and things like that, but they're never fully comprehensive in terms of the number of video games that are available. There's always going to be stuff that's not available. And even the stuff that is available, sometimes they have to be modified because music licenses expire. So sometimes they have to replace music that they had in an old video game with a different track or something. And it might kind of change things up. I'm pretty sure that's like a big messy issue with GoldenEye 007 on the N64. The music is copyrighted, right? So Nintendo can't just keep re-releasing that, and I don't think that they care to anyway. So anyway, that is to say that I've seen people emulating, all the Game Boy era games, 3DS. Actually, I don't know about 3DS, but at least DS, and even like N64 games on their iPhones, which is pretty wild. So if you own those games and are able to back it up and drop these files onto your iPhones, that might give your iPhone something good to do with that powerful chip, because yeah, that's pretty cool. I think one of the drawbacks of gaming on an iPhone is that your control, uh, your input options are quite limited. You don't have buttons, right? So you're just gonna have these on-screen buttons, and it's not gonna cut it for games that require quick inputs where you need the tactile feedback from physical buttons. But things like Pokemon, I mean, playing Pokemon Emerald on my iPhone, that sounds pretty cool. And I have done that before, when I had some Android phones back in the day, and it is awesome. It is pretty cool. But there are also like, these controller things you can get that slide onto the phone. So like you can turn your iPhone into like a little mini Switch, right? So that's an option. Me personally, I probably won't download this or bother with it, because if I'm gonna play like a GBA game, like a Pokemon game or anything on my iPhone, I'd rather just pack my PSP or PS Vita and play on that instead, because it has really good layout. It's got the buttons built in. I don't need to carry a separate device to have tactile input, or my Steam Deck for that matter. So, but like if you don't have those things, let's say you don't have a 3DS, you don't have a PSP or Vita or anything like that, and you want an option to like play your old Pokemon games or whatever other nostalgic stuff, that's a pretty cool option for you. That's like free now. And again, I'd really advise you against piracy. Don't do that. That's illegal. Do it responsibly and legally. Do your own research. I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to do it. But yeah, there you have it. What do you think? If you're an iPhone owner, are you gonna download this? Are you gonna start emulating games on your iPhone? That's pretty cool. So there was one more topic that I wanted to talk about, but this is something that I know Alex is gonna feel strongly about. So I'm gonna save it for the next time. And yeah, it's Alex and I have both been busy, but Alex especially, he's had a lot on his shoulders lately. So just thank you for your patience. Thank you. And we're gonna pump these out as much as possible, and when I need to, I'll do some of these solo episodes. Or bring a guest on or whatever. But yeah. There you have it. That is a sick edition, ill edition of downloadable content from me, because I'm sick, literally. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. For our cockatiels, we have Joshua, we have Tyler, and we have Grandpappy. And for our parakeets, we have J Mauer, aka Big Bear, aka Zaruma, aka Zaruma. You know what? In fact, that's kind of funny, because I want to mention what he said in here. He just like gave me all the different names that I could refer to him by. I don't know how to pull up. I'll have to. I'll mention it some other time. And then of course we also have our big boy Nicholas. Thank you to all of you, and to the rest of you. I get it. You can't be subscribing to everything, but But watching us and sharing our content with your friends and family helps us out. And even if you don't do any of that, just knowing that you're listening to this right now really gives me a lot of joy. So appreciate your support, and we'll talk to you next time.